Welcome to building block number 7, living Tefillah. Living Tefillah means we want Tefillah to be alive for the children. And one of the greatest challenges I think we have today in our yeshiva system is how to make Tefillah exciting, something that the children sense that I am really connecting to my Creator. And it's not without reason that this is becoming a challenging accomplishment, because there are a lot of factors that contribute to children feeling disenchanted by religion, and arguably one of the top 3 is tefillah, is davening, is prayer. Now we're going to look at this very briefly because it will help us to understand the challenge that we're facing. And the more realistic we are about where our children are holding in their relationship to tefillah, the easier it is going to be for us to understand how to fix the problem. So first we have to realize there is a very serious challenge on our hands. And if we're not cognizant, we're not fully aware of the way it's impacting the children's relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu through tefillah, we're in danger of doing more of the same, not realizing that we may not even be doing what the intent is behind davening. So let's figure this out together. Children, if they don't know what they are saying, is that really tefillah? Well, the obvious question is, what is tefillah? We're going to look at the definition of tefillah. It's number 1 of the items we're going to look at. And when we recognize that the definition our sages give for tefillah is kavanas halev, which really means focus of the mind, we're going to see in a few moments why it means mind more than heart. If tefillah is really focusing my mind, and I don't understand what I'm saying, then is that really davening? That becomes a serious question. That's a serious problem. Because if a child is rote davening by memorization or following inside, hopefully the place, but maybe a place inside the siddur, inside the prayer book, but he's lacking in reading accuracy and fluency, and so he's constantly trying to catch up with where the rest of the class is up to in davening. If he's not understanding what he's saying, what is he practicing? First grade, 10, 15, 20 minutes a day. Second grade, 20, 25 minutes a day. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. The average child by the age of bar mitzvah, has done about 2,000 hours of davening. But the problem is the following. What happens if it's not kavanas halev? If they don't really understand what they're saying, then how much of the davening is actually davening? Now, these are not my words. This is taken from Rav Wolbe, who tried to re-establish tefillah according to Chazal, and it's not an easy task. I'm taking on the challenge of sharing what does tefillah mean according to Chazal, and then once we've got the hashkafa in tefillah and understand where are we supposed to be with this, then we can understand what are we delivering to the children. Is this going to equal a relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, or is this going to equal a disconnect? So when you consider that the average child has davened 2,000 hours before bar mitzvah, and most of that is with or without kavanas halev, with or without understanding what they're saying. If the reality is that it's without understanding, they've spent 2,000 hours disconnecting. And now we can make sense out of a very simple scenario, which sadly is rampant. Here's my little Moshe, turned 13, 14, his bar mitzvah. And it's 11 o'clock, Shabbos morning, and Moshe, you're still not out of bed. What is the matter with you? We made a deal. You told me that you can't take my minyan because it's 2 3/4 hours. And you're going out of your kelim. Okay, so we made a deal. I'm going to go to a different minyan, which is only 2 hours. It's not my Rav's minyan, and I'm doing this for you, and you're still not up. What's the matter with you? Now, our little Moshe, if he could articulate what many kids are starting to explain much later on, usually in their late 20s, early 30s, after they have matured or been through therapy or understood what were the factors to help push them out of the system? And now later on, they are coming back without a chip on their shoulder, and they're helping us understand what was contributing to them becoming disenchanted. What was contributing to them feeling forced out of the machane, out of our yeshiva system? And in the top 3 items out of 17, this is not the subject of today, but in the top 3 out of 17 factors pushing them out of the system is tefillah, davening. And so our little Moshe, now 27, 33 years old, which might be part of that group that are putting together a book to help us understand what are the factors in our culture that's actually contributing, almost planning without intent, to push our kids out. And if he could now explain to Daddy on Shabbos morning what's really going through his mind, he might say something like this. Ta, let me explain something to you. I have been davening thousands of hours of words that I don't understand. I'm doing that about 3/4 an hour to an hour and a quarter a day between Shacharis, Mincha, Mariv. So I'm spending an hour and a quarter a day disconnecting from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You want me, Ta, on my day of rest, Shabbos, to discount, instead of an hour and a quarter disconnecting, I only have to disconnect for 2 hours. Ta, do you understand why I don't want to get out of bed? Oh, so tefillah is not meaningful. In fact, if it's meaningless, and that's been kind, because if davening is not kavanas lev, I don't understand what I'm saying. I'm not connected here or here, either in my mind or in my emotions, to the words, and I'm told I'm davening. And what's really happening is I am losing my interest, because what I'm doing for an hour plus a day is an exercise in meaninglessness, an exercise in wasting my brain and time. And what's really going on, if I'm not engaged, I'm not understanding, I'm not connected to the words and what's behind those words, then what's going through my mind and my emotion? What I'm really being wired to do is say to myself, you know what, this doesn't make any sense. You know what, this is boring. You know, I don't like this. You know, I don't like this at all. I hate davening. And as we move further and further away from the plus side of the scale, we go to the 0, and then we cross over onto the minus side of the scale, till I hate davening on a 1 to 10 scale, it's a 1. Oh, I hate davening on a 2, a 3, a 5, a 10. And eventually, the child's mind starts going in a different direction. I can't wait to get out of here. You know, when I get older, I'm out of... and they start figuring out ways to pretend that they're davening, when really they're not. They're just keeping their finger as long as they're being policed. I mean, as long as the teacher is watching to see who's inside and who's not inside the text. And it becomes a farce. I'm not here to mikatrik. I'm not trying to, God forbid, bring out the negative in our system. I'm articulating what the children themselves later on in their late 20s are able to explain and communicate more clearly what they are experiencing in the younger years. Rav Wolbe puts it in his book, Zriya Ubinyan Bechinuch, much stronger, and it's in the manual on Living Tefillah, which comes with this video, so that you can read what he says. Very scathing, very strong language, that if we are training our children to not understand the words they're reading and the messages behind the tefillahs, what we're doing is preparing our kids to go off the derech as teenagers or later on, because they are spending thousands of hours disconnecting from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it's a meaningless exercise in not understanding anything. So this is a very serious problem, and we're not here to analyze the problem. We're here to understand what our kids are going through, so that when we now look at what tefillah is, and as you might have noticed, I've only used the word prayer 2 or 3 times, because the word prayer is actually not the translation according to Chazal. It's a convenient and it's a popular translation. It's not what it says. So we're going to go back to basics. We're first going to define what is tefillah. We need to look at the definition based on the Torah itself. We're also going to look at where is this mitzvah in the Torah. It's actually in several places, but the key place we're going to look at where is this mitzvah in the Torah, and ask ourselves, What does it mean to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all your levavechem? Oh, we're going to look at that word, and we're going to see that the word lev, as you've actually seen in the Hashkafa part of the series, does not mean heart the vast majority of times. It actually means mind. We are then going to look at the context of tefillah, meaning we're going to look at that mitzvah in Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Yud Gimel. Actually, it's in the second paragraph of Shema Yisrael in Devarim, and we're going to see, in the context of where the mitzvah of tefillah is located, we'll understand what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu write before and after, so we understand the big picture of what tefillah is meant to be part of. And that's going to be very revealing to us. We're going to see in that pasuk what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to achieve through tefillah, avodah shebelev. We are then going to look at a very important question, and that is, today we have the Siddur. How old is the Siddur? Well, from the time of Ezra and Anshe Knesset Gdola, it's almost 2,000 years. Also, the problem is, the mitzvah of tefillah was given to us at Har Sinai in Devarim Perek Yud Aleph. One second, that's 3,327 years ago. So what were we doing for 1,300 years before the Siddur was written? That's a good kasha. And if Chazal, Beruach Kadsham, with divine inspiration, formulated the tefillahs, now known as the Siddur, which I'm loosely translating, forgive me for being honest, I'm loosely mistranslating as prayer book. Siddur comes from the word Seder, which means it's organized, it's sequenced. There's a reason why this comes here, and this comes here, and this comes here. There's an arrangement, there's a Seder. It's organized in a very, very powerful way. The Siddur was written 2,000 years ago. What were we doing for 1,300 years? And the answer we're going to see was, we were davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, spontaneous conversation. That was the original. One second, if that was the original, why would it be tweaked and modified into a script, which is not even my words, someone else's words? Why are we doing it? So that's an important question to look at, because what we will discover is that whenever Chazal did any modification, it was never a distraction from the original. It was actually an attempt to regain the original. And we're going to look at a few examples of that in order to understand a number of drabbanans which are not taking away from the Torah. It's actually the contrary. It's trying to re-grasp a stronger grip on what we were losing. But Chazal saw in their Ruach HaKodesh that if we didn't put tefillah into the Siddur, we'd lose it entirely. Chazal saw another Hirasha, another emergency measure, was if they didn't write down the Torah Sheba'al Peh in the form of the Mishnah, we would lose it. They saw that if we don't legislate that Chayav Adam Levarach Mea Brachas B'chol Yom Lefachos, that each Jew has to say 100 blessings a day. One second, the Torah, how many blessings are mandated by the Torah itself? Do a quick scan of Chamisha Chumshei Torah, and you'll see out of Tarek mitzvahs, one mitzvah is mandated, and that's Birkas Hamazon, grace after meals. Whoa. If the Torah only mandates one mitzvah deraisa to bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why do Chazal come along and mandate that now I have an obligation, Chayav Adam Levarach Mea, 100 blessings a day? The Torah only legislates one. Am I smarter than the Torah? Why are they doing that? And we're going to see the answer to these questions. That whenever Chazal legislated what looks like something that's different, was not only not really different, it was a total attempt to realign to what we were losing in terms of our sensitivity in a certain area. And we're going to see how that was in the case of the Siddur. How the Siddur is not a substitute for the original Tefillah. It's meant to be a platform to spring us back into the original spontaneous conversation with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to basics. And once we've done this, then we're going to look at the 5 goals of Tefillah. There are 3 that are obvious to us. Chazal label them clearly. Shevach, praise. Haidah, which means gratitude. And Bakasha, which means requests. We're going to see there's 2 additional goals of Tefillah in the framework of what Tefillah is. And when we do, it'll give us the background of where we, as Machanchim, as teachers, as educators, where we are coming from when we want to teach Tefillah to our children. But first, let's know, what are we talking about? Let's be much clearer and not use so much English vocabulary, which has substituted the words in the Lashon HaKodesh in such a way that's almost decoyed. It's almost distracted my mind from paying attention to the original intent. And that's where we want to then come from, where after we've done these 6 components, we will then look at the practical. How do we teach tefillah so that it's meaningful for our children? So essentially, we've identified 6 building blocks of tefillah. And you will see why each one of these is a ma'akev, that without getting mastery to a decent degree on each one, is going to hold me back from mastery of tefillah. So for example, if a child cannot read accurately / or fluently, is that going to affect their ability to follow inside the siddur, to follow at the pace of the Shaliach Tzibur? Of course, if he can't read accurately, he doesn't know what he's reading. If he can't read fluently at the pace of the rest of the class or in shul, he's going to be behind and trying to catch up all the time. So his mind is going to be more on catching up and following than on the actual meaning of the words. And many times he actually has to go faster with his finger and skip words or swallow syllables of entire words in order to keep up with the pace. Oh, so accuracy and fluency in reading is an essential for a child to feel he's got a chance at enjoying the career of tefillah. Career, yes, it's a lifetime career. But a child who can't read accurately and fluently, how is that going to affect his relationship to davening? 0 to 10 scale, 0 is the least, 10 is the most. It's going to be like a 0 or a minus. He's not going to enjoy davening, he's going to hate it because he can't read accurately or fluently. So that's a ma'akev. That really would hold the child back. Building block number 2 is, does the child have enough vocabulary that frequently reappears in davening? Much of it is actually from Chumash, the same vocabulary. If the child doesn't understand enough vocabulary to make sense out of the majority of what he's reading and davening and singing, then that's going to affect his davening. He won't be able to understand. And as we said, tefillah is kavanas halev, which we're going to look at in detail. What does it mean to be focused with the mind? I understand what I'm saying. I understand the words in my brain, and I understand as they come out my mouth what they mean. Number 3 of this is, do I know the prefixes and suffixes, which goes back to the Lashon HaTorah component, building block number 1, you may recall. Oh, if I don't know vocabulary, prefixes and suffixes, I can't make sense of the words of davening. Much of davening is a liquid of psukim. It's a collection of psukim, especially psukim de Zimra. So it's the Chazal constantly were borrowing from and collecting from, selecting from psukim verses from all over Tanakh, especially Tehillim, as part of our tefillahs. So if the child can't make sense because he doesn't have building block number 2 and 3 of the 6 building blocks of tefillah, it's going to hold him back from making sense out of davening. He might enjoy davening in the early years because he's singing, and there's a momentum in the davening with the singing, and he enjoys singing. That's true. But kavanas halev is the essence of tefillah. Singing is a very serious bonus. It's a very serious component to reinforce the relationship, but it's not the whole thing. So number 4 is we're going to look at key tefillah vocabulary. So for example, Baruch comes up all the time. What does it mean? So we're going to try and avoid the Christian-based translation, which is blessed, which is not wrong or inaccurate. It's just not really getting a grasp of the real meaning. Ata, what do you mean Ata? Why isn't it the royal we, His Majesty? Why are we saying you directly? We'll get to that. Elokeinu, Elokim, Malach HaOlam. These are key vocabulary words that we need to have a clear understanding and drill those more than any other vocabulary in davening because they're going to reappear so frequently. It's extremely important that we take Hashem's names more seriously because HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes out of his way to call himself different names. And if we just translate every single time Hashem, 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 but sometimes the words in tefillah are shakai, or kel, or adnus, or yud kei vav kei, or elokim, el eloka. And to just translate it Hashem, Hashem, Hashem each time is training the mind of the child not to pay attention to the words of Kadosh Baruch Hu put in the minds of Chazal when they, Beruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, wrote the Siddur. So it's a dangerous thing to rely on a translation that's not even reflecting the meaning of the word, especially when it's Hashem's own name. So we're going to look at that carefully, because if the child doesn't have the key vocabulary tefillah, which it will enable the child to trigger in his mind the meaning of this word and the emotional association that comes with that meaning. Elokim, you are the power of all powers, and lots of examples of that, without which the child will be rote davening, and that's exact opposite of the intent. Kavanas Halev is not a robot. It's the mind engaged in the words. Number 5 of this is even before we get to Pashup Pshat, because usually we shoot for Bir Tefillah and Pashup Pshat way too early, because the children haven't got the building blocks before you get to simple meaning. Number 5 is, what are the messages, simple messages in davening? So we're going to break it up into each chelik of davening. Birkas HaShachar. Thank you, Hashem, for my hands. Al netilat yadayim. Thank you for water. Al netilat yadayim. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the functions of my body, especially digestion. Asher yatsa. That's a biggie. That's a very powerful blessing. It's the most frequently blessed blessing in all of our davening. So it requires extra attention to understand, what do we mean by these words? And it's not just enough to know Pashup Pshat. We need to have a simple message. What am I thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for? What am I grateful for? What am I requesting if I am? And we're going to look at the 5 goals of tefillah to know what is the compass needle and what direction it's supposed to be pointing in, so that when I'm teaching tefillah to the children, I know these are the messages that direct the compass needle in this direction. It's a bakasha, it's a request. Why? Oh, because my requests reinforce my emunah in Hashem. Why am I asking you anything if I don't believe you can deliver? Oh, we're going to look at each one of those components. Hodah, gratitude. Yeah, tefillah is a training, a daily training, almost hourly training, literally, in gratitude for the good that's already in my life. So we're going to look at those components, and that will help us identify what are the major messages. Before we talk about taich, before we talk about translation and the Pashup Pshat simple meaning, we're going to look at what are the main messages that we want to bring out of each part of davening. Thank you, Hashem, for my spine. Zokef kifufim, malbish arumim. Thank you for my clothes. These are very important components, and we want the children to be ragil, to be familiar with the simple messages that are coming out of the very words, and have them say it in English. That's their mother tongue. That's the real language they understand. In addition to actually saying the brachas, so that as they grow from 1st to 2nd and 3rd grade, and they've said these messages hundreds and hundreds of times. I love you, Hashem, because you give me my eyes. Pokeach ivrim. And we'll have a whole video discussing the intricacies of the eye. Oh, I love you, Hashem, because you provide me my shoes. Shasali kol sarki, and all my needs. Oh, we're going to learn about simple components, messages that are coming out of each part of the davening, so that our children are getting the message of the 5 goals of tefillah, constantly reinforced, reinforced, reinforced. And they'll understand in their minds, I know why I'm davening. I know I'm practicing gratitude as a training in my own happiness. I'm paying attention to the good that's in my life on a daily basis. We're going to help the children have a connection directly with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the messages are going to be compounded again and again and again. And then finally, now we're ready for Pashup Pshat. But what's the point in going to Pashup Pshat, Bir Tefillah, if the kid can't read accurately or fluently? So he's not reconstructing Pshat when he's reading the words every day. In fact, what he's actually doing is practicing the mistakes every day. Practicing misreading, practicing not reading accurately, practicing not reading fluently. And with that goes the association of, I don't enjoy this. This makes no sense. I'm not getting anything from this. This is boring. I want out of here. I can't wait till I get out of it. I can't believe I'm supposed to do this 3 times a day after Bar Mitzvah. I've got to figure out ways to get around this. And before we know it, we're planning, not with intent, we're planning to force our children out of davening. And we're telling them, you know what, I don't understand you. It's Bein Hazmanim. You haven't even opened up the siddur. What's the matter with you? And the kid just wants a holiday, vacation from tefillah. What? A vacation from a relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu? How could that be? Because the association he has is not a connection. Even though he might get a guilt trip being told, you know, you're so ungrateful if you can't even say a bracha. Meanwhile, in the kid's mind, he realizes, I don't intend on being ungrateful. I just don't understand what I'm saying, and I don't know to whom I'm speaking. And tefillah becomes one giant disconnect. So there's no mystery in why our children, so many of them, feel disconnected from Torah and Yiddishkeit through tefillah. So these are the 6 building blocks which we will look at. This is, if you like, the menu. I've given you the structure. Now we're going to go to the beginning. And in defining tefillah, as we've mentioned earlier, the way to do this is very simple. Let's find the word in Lashon HaKodesh and define it according to Lashon HaKodesh. So what's the 3-letter root of tefillah? Is palel. What does palel mean? Well, palilim in the Chumash, in Dvarim, you will find that palilim refer to judges. Palel means judge. What does judge mean? You're making a decision. That's what a judge is. He's making a decision. You're making a choice. Now, the big problem in correctly translating the word tefillah as palel, judge, is that when we look at the word lehit palel, many of you will know that's reflexive. Lehit palel means I'm doing this action to myself. So in the mitzvah lehit palel, what I'm actually being asked to do, what I'm being instructed to do is judge whom? Myself. The act of tefillah is tefillah where I am judging myself. I'm making decisions for myself, choices for myself. Who's the worst person for me to judge me? Me! So what does it mean I've got a mitzvah, lit palel, in the reflexive where I'm doing it to myself, I'm judging me? I've got all my self-defense mechanisms, I've got my prejudices. There's no way that I'm going to come out objective about myself if I have to make decisions about myself to myself. Well, let's look at the mitzvah properly. When we look at the mitzvah of lehit palel laHashem, we're praying to Hashem, inverted commas, prayer. We are judging ourselves in Hashem's presence. So a very simple analogy I would like to offer is the following. You go to a therapist who's come up with this totally unique therapy. And what is it? Well, every time I'm honest about myself, then the first time I do that in the session, I get all my $300 back on the session, in cash, right there on the spot. The second time I get gutsy and I'm honest about what's the real issue, instead of deflecting by blaming other people, complaining about others, accusing other people, denying it's my fault, giving excuses why it's everyone else's fault. When I get to the crux of the matter and I'm honest and I judge myself honestly in front of the therapist, the second time I do that, I get another $300 cash. And the third time in the same session, another $300. Each time I'm honest, I get these piles of cash. Now what will happen, that's the carrot. The stick part of the session, this is whole new therapy, and it's very effective, is that every time I'm not really honest about myself, and I find an excuse where I'm going to blame my wife, or my husband, or my children, or my mother, or my father-in-law, or whoever it is that I'm upset with and blaming it's their fault that things aren't happening, what happens? Sorry. I get this electric shock. It's very painful, but it's not fatal. Every time I'm not honest I'm sorry. Every time I'm not honest about myself, I get this electric shock. Question: how many sessions do you think I'm going to need till I get to the real core of my issues? How many sessions? If I'm making $300 on every time I'm honest, and that's how I'm wirelessly connected to this technology that can detect if I'm being honest up here and in here about my issues, I get $300 cash put right in front of me that I walk out of the session with, and I get these electric shocks, and they're really, really painful. It's not worth it. Oh, about one session? You see, I'm using this analogy for the simple reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the ultimate therapist, and he's really 1-800 Almighty. Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm here to talk to you about me and my issues. You see, the real definition of tefillah is lehit palel. I'm judging myself, making decisions about myself, choices about myself in front of you. You know everything already. So I'm much more likely to cut through the layers of self-defense and all the mechanisms I've put up to cover and camouflage the real issues. I'm much more likely when I'm opening up and begging you, Rabban Shalom, Master of the Universe, Lev Tahor Bara Li Elokim, please create for me a pure mind, pure thoughts. Help me to get clear on what's right and what's wrong, how to behave in this marriage, how to adjust my responses to this particular kid who's driving me nuts. How do I change me in what I'm thinking and therefore feeling that will be picked up by my child, so that essentially the point of tefillah is for me to get intimate with me. That's real intimacy. Into me see. And I'm doing this session with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. So essentially, the starting point of defining tefillah is a relationship with Hashem. And it's a relationship such that I talk to Him about me, what's going on in my mind, what's going on with the turmoil of emotions that I'm experiencing in this marriage, with this child, in my career, in my personal growth, in my spiritual growth, in my profession, with my colleagues, with my co-worker, with my extended family, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, whoever it is that I'm experiencing slight challenges in my life, with my chavrusa, with my learning partner, with the community, with leadership. Have I covered everybody? Oh, Hashem says, please have a relationship with me, talk to me. Because real tefillah is lehit palel, I am talking about me in front of you. Now comes along the Ben Ish Chai, and he writes in Sefer Ben Yehoyada, which is his Perush on Shas, in Brachas, Daf Chaf Aleph. He quotes Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Ulavai, if only shispalel adam kol hayom kuloi. If only a person would daven all day long. So ask the Ben Ish Chai the most obvious question. It's impossible. How can Rabbi Yochanan make a request, Ulavai, if only shispalel adam, a person would daven kol hayom kula, the entire day? It's impossible. A person needs to go to the bathroom. A person needs to eat, to drink. A person needs to raise a family. A person needs to go to work. A person needs to sleep. You can't daven all day long. So what does it mean? Comes along the Ben Ish Chai and it opens up. Amazing. Absolutely beautiful. You see, what's the essence of a human being? What's the essence of a man? Of mankind? Adam. What is Adam? What is Adam in his essence? Oh, we are created for what? To have a relationship with Kodesh Baruch Hu. We are created of the 4 different levels of creation. The lowest level is doimem, inanimate objects, rock. The next level up is Someach. You've got vegetation. Next level up, you've got Chai. You have the animal kingdom. The highest level of all is Medaber. Adam is called Medaber, a speaker, a communicator. For whom? With whom? Oh, with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. What's that about? Oh, it's about me learning about myself by talking to the power of all powers who created the entire universe for me to have a relationship with Him. Oh, so tefillah is all about me talking to you. We're going to see soon how the Siddur actually helps that, but we're not up to that yet. We're just going all the way back to basics and just simply looking at the definition of tefillah. Now we're asking, what's the essence of a human being? So comes along the Ben Ish Chai and says, Ulavai shispalel adam kol hayom kulai. If only men would daven all day long, that's impossible. But comes along Ben Ish Chai and shows what the word Adam really means. Do you remember we said the 4 levels? Adam is a medaber, he's a speaker, a communicator. Well, let's look a little bit closer. Says the Ben Ish Chai, in Lashon HaKodesh, as you know, if you want to know the meaning of a word, break it down into the letters and identify the meaning of each letter. In this particular case, the way we do it is we actually spell out each letter, so that what you're looking at is the DNA of creation. You are looking at the spiritual chemistry of a human being when you identify what are the letters that make up Adam. So comes along Ben Ish Chai and says, well, spell it out. Aleph is spelled Aleph, Lamed, Fei. Daled is spelled Daled, Lamed, Tuf. Mem is spelled Mem, Mem. Says the Ben Ish Chai, look closer, because you're looking at the spiritual chemistry of reality, what man was created for. What's his function? What's his responsibility? What's his purpose? Says the Ben Ish Chai, here's the mem. Taf, Fei, Lamed, Adam. Do you know what his essence is? He's a mitpalel. What is palel? Judge, decide, make choice, a decision. Mitpalel is the present tense. You see, what's your brain doing every waking second of your life? Your brain is thinking. Choices, decisions. It's constantly making a judgment. Your brain, every waking second, is evaluating, measuring the value of focusing on this subject or being distracted by some other noise over here, or my mind, you know what, this is a boring subject, I think I'll go over in my mind the vacation. And your brain is constantly in a state of mitpalel, making choices, decisions, judgments right now. So comes along Ben Ish Chai and says, you know what man is? Man in essence is a mitpalel. We're constantly deciding. And so what he's saying is, if I'm deciding on my own, good luck. But what happens if I'm including the ultimate therapist? I'm discussing it with him. I'm asking, Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm going on a journey, so I'm going to make a quick request. I should get there safely. We actually have a bracha called Tefila Sederech. We wake up in the morning and we open our eyes. Thank you, Hashem, for my eyes. Pokeach Ivrim. That's Drabanan. We put our feet on the ground. Oh, Hameichin Mitzadeh Gaver. We straighten up our back as we get out of bed. Oh, Zoikef Kifufim. Mal Bisharumim, we start getting dressed. Oh, interesting. You see, you look up in Shulchan Aruch and you'll see in Orach Chaim, especially Reish Lamed Aleph, section 231, that a person's supposed to, in the preferred state, to include the Kadosh Baruch Hu in every activity of his life. So, Ulavaishis Palal Adam Kol Hayom Kula is literal. Says the Ben Ish Chai, a person goes to the bathroom, he makes a bracha when he comes out. Person eats, he makes a bracha before and after and during. I'm supposed to be thinking about, the taste is delicious, thank you. Let this food be healthy for me and give me the nutrition I require. We don't say it with words because we're not supposed to talk while we're chewing and eating. That might be dangerous. No, I'm supposed to be saying this in my mind. I'm just sharing with you, in the essence of tefillah, it's not just 3 times a day, because in the deoraisa of tefillah, it's any time, any place, any circumstance. There's only a couple of places where I'm not allowed to daven because of it's mastic, or there's a filthy smell, or it could be it's a bathroom or in the shower. But essentially, everywhere else, I'm supposed to be talking to you, Rebbeinu Shalom. So the original tefillah, which we're going to get to in much more detail later, is the concept that I have a relationship with you where I open my mouth and I talk to you about what I'm going through right now. Whether it's on a journey, whether it's coming home, please help me to have shalom bayis. Help me to do more listening instead of just accusing or blaming or complaining or denying or excusing. Help me do more empathy, appreciation, show more gratitude. There's lots of room for that. Lots of room. Oh, but if I get fixated, emotional, help me, please. You're the ultimate therapist. Please don't let me get fixated on my husband or my wife's faults, because if I go there, it drives me mad. Oh, what does Hashem want me to be fixated on? The good in you, the good in me. Tefillah is about asking Hashem, help me be a better husband, wife, child, parent. So I'm including you, Rebbeinu Shalom, in the decision-making process, which I'm doing anyway by default. My mind is constantly deciding, evaluating, judging, making choices. Oh, what's man called? We are given a few labels. Chazal, who are the mouthpiece of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. This is a Masorah, Mipiha Gavura, from the mouth of Kadosh Baruch Hu, through Moshe Rabbeinu, to Yeshua, to the Zkanim, to the Nevi'im, to the Anshe Knesset Gdolah. When they define something, it's not a popular opinion. It's not after an investigation of a popular statistical analysis. Leave that to the Western society in their defining reality. We have a Masorah which is Mipi Agvura. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu defines man, it's reality. Man is a mitpalel. Man is also called a Baal Bechira. He's the owner in control of choices. We have the ability to respond. Responsibility is really the correct translation for the word Bechira. I'm able to respond with das. That's why a child before bat and bar mitzvah is not a bar das. They're not accountable for their actions because their mind hasn't developed enough for them to realize the severity of making a mistake and the positive consequences and ripple effect of doing the right thing. Oh, so I need to reach a certain maturity before HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds me accountable. Oh, now we're called Ba'alei Bechira. We are masters of choice. Our minds are constantly making choices. So the question is, if my mind is making choices anyway, so I don't even have to wait till I get to the $300 per hour session with the ultimate therapist, because guess what? He's omnipresent. He's everywhere. He's called Hamakim, because Hashem is everywhere all the time. Oh, so Tefillah is not isolated to Shacharis Mincha Mariv. That's the Drabanan Tefillah, and I have a Chiyuv Gomor in that. The original Tefillah is whenever, whatever, whichever situation we find ourselves in, speak to me, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, have a relationship with me. So this is contained in the word Adam Mitpalel, and it jives perfectly. It's a perfect fit with the definition of Baal Bechira, because we're constantly making decisions. We are constantly able to change our choices, and in doing so, we can lose weight by making a different choice of nutrition, of foods, or things that we're going to reduce: smoking, addictional type of foods or drugs or whatever it is. That we are Bali Bechira of what comes out our mouths in our choice of being more appreciative, kind in our words, complimentary, giving encouragement, as opposed to accusations, blaming, complaining, denying, excusing. This is not what you're teaching the children. We're just going back to basics here to look at the word palel means not prayer, and I'm not saying it's the wrong translation, but in a good Hebrew English dictionary, you will see it means judge, clarify, debate, decide. That's strange. You won't even find the word prayer. Do you know why? Because tefillah means all of those. What is a judgment? What is the decision? That is the result of a process. What's the process? Debate. Oh, your mind is constantly debating, going back and forth. What are the virtues and what are the negative consequences, the positive consequences of this decision, of focusing on this, of going this place, this vacation, choosing this job, getting married to this person, how I perform in the marriage, how I respond to this particular kid. We're making choices all the time, and that choice, that decision, is the result of a process called debate, which leads to clarity and therefore eventually a result. Oh, so the whole concept of tefillah is, Rebbe Shalom, I'm doing this anyway. The question is, am I including you? Are you part of this process? And when I do come to a decision, am I asking you to help me make the right decision? Am I asking you also to help me that if and when I do discover it was not the best decision, am I going to beat myself up or ask you, Rebbe Shalom, help me to learn from my mistakes? And help me to know when guilt makes sense and when guilt doesn't make sense. Because if I'm going to get all stuck in the mistake and beat myself up and think that's great, no, that's not great. That's not what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do. The word aveira, which really means violation, contains in it the three-letter root avar. What does avar mean? Past. Sorry, I'll translate myself. Past. It happened. It's history. Contained in the word aveira is the very ingredient to help me recover from the mistake. Move forward, don't look back. Oh, I'm going to look back to learn a lesson? Oh, that's worthwhile. But if I'm going to go back and I find myself beating myself up, tearing myself apart, I can't believe I did. I'm such a rush. I'm such a terrible person. I'll never live. I'm such a slob. I can't get control of myself. And I beat myself up. Hashem doesn't want me to do that. Oh. So tefillah is all about a conversation, spontaneous, 1-800 Almighty conversation with the ultimate therapist. And it's all in our essence. The only question is, I'm doing it anyway, but but are you included in my life? Am I including you, yes or no? That's what tefillah is. We're going to get to the nuts and bolts of how we're going to put this into the 6 building blocks. But right now, first let's re-grip the meaning of the word. So we looked at the definition of tefillah. Tefillah is a relationship with Kadosh Baruch Hu, and it really means me judging. It's a dangerous word to use because it has the connotations of law and order and judges on a bench. Judging as in a decision, as in a choice, making a decision. Now what we're going to do is look at the way the Torah defines tefillah. What's the definition of tefillah? According to Chazal, and they tell us it's kavanas halev. Very dangerous term. Why dangerous? It's not dangerous, but it's problematic because the Christian translation of the word lev is heart, and that's the only translation. So unfortunately, over the decades, we're kind of stuck with their translation. But when we look closely throughout Tanakh, we will discover the word lev has 4 meanings. And it's important for us to know that because when Chazal, our sages, define tefillah as kavanas halev, we have to know what we are referring to. Which one of those 4? Or is it more than one? Let's see. Lev, first and foremost, means mind. That's the first meaning. We looked at this in the Hashkafa series, but I'm going to cover it again now because I'm not sure if everyone watching this saw the Hashkafa series, and if you did, you might not remember because it may have been many weeks ago. And if you do remember it perfectly, you've got all your notes in front of you, you can skip to the end of this part. But otherwise, I'm going to do a quick review of the word lev because it's central to the definition of kavanas halev, which is the definition our sages give for tefillah. So number 1, lev means mind. We'll see examples in a few moments. Number 2, it's the icon of emotions. Number 3, it's the physical heart, literally your heart. And number 4, it's a metaphor, it's a mashal, it's a metaphor. I'm going to go backwards. No, I don't mean backwards like this. I'm going to go backwards through this. The metaphor, for example, we say every morning in our davening, we sing out Shiras Hayam, where the Jewish people crossed the Yam Suf. Hashem split the Yam Suf. And one of the many miracles that took place there was Kafu Tahaimos. Hashem congealed the soft ground and made it dry, Belev Yam, in the heart of the sea. There's no heart in the sea. It's a mashal, it's a metaphor. Moshe Rabbeinu in Perek Daled in Parshas Ve'eschanan, when he's reminding us of the Mamad HaSinai, the greatest event in world history, Hashem's national divine revelation at Mount Sinai, tells us, you remember the flaming fire, Haha was Baya, the mountain was flaming, Haha Baya ad Lev Shamayim, till the heart in heaven. There's no heart in heaven, it's a metaphor. Meaning in the turmoil on top of Har Sinai, with the dark cloud and the thunder and the lightning and the kailos, the incredible sounds, the quaking of the mountain, in all that, says Rashi, the concept of Lev Shamayim is in Toich. It's in the midst of, in the middle of all that turmoil. Oh, so the word Lev can mean a metaphor. Going backwards, number 3 is it can mean the heart, as in the literal heart. So, for example, in I think it's in Perek Chav Ches, where there's a description in Shmos, Parshas Tetzaveh, of the Choshen, the breastplate that was al liboy, on his heart, in reference to Aaron HaKohen, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. It wasn't literally on his heart, but it was against his heart. Al liboy means against his physical heart. It was located in the middle of his body against the heart, which the heart is in the middle of the body. Oh, so it can mean the literal heart. Or as we say in the halachas of tefillin, round about Simon Lamed Beis in Shulchan Aruch and Orach Chaim, when we wear the tefillin al liboy, keneged the lev, opposite the heart. It's talking about the physical heart. So it can mean physical heart. Number 2, out of the 4, is it can also mean the icon of emotions. So, for example, when we say near the end of Perek Dalet in Parshas V'eschanan, we say every day in our davening, V'yadata hayom. Where do you do your knowing? Oh, that's in your mind. V'yadata hayom, v'hashavoi sa'el levavecha, and bring it into your emotions. We're going to see in a moment why levavecha means emotions over here. And what is that you have to bring from your mind to your emotions? Ki Hashem hu Elokim, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the eternal constant one. He's the Elokim, Baal HaKoiches Kulam. He's the one power behind all the powers. Bashamayim mima'al, in the heavens above, ve'al ha'aretz mitachat, and on the earth beneath. Ein oid, no other power exists. Get it up here, and then bring it to over here. So there it's referring to the emotions. The vast majority of times, vast means more than 9 times out of 10. Throughout Tanakh, leiv means mind. It doesn't mean the other 3. So for example, the first time the word leiv appears in the Torah at the beginning, in any pasuk in the entire Torah, is in Bereshis Perek Vav Pasuk Hey. Where Hashem says, Vayar Hashem saw ki rabba rasa Adam. The negativity of mankind was abundant. The kol yetzer, and all the design, machshavos. What's machshava mean? Oh, thoughts. The kol yetzer machshavos libai rak kol hayom. All the design of his thoughts, of his mind, were negative all day long. Oh, the word leiv means mind. You'll find we say every morning in our davening, remember we mentioned earlier that much of our prayers is a liquid, it's a collection of psukim from all over Tanakh. So we say every morning before Psukei de Zimra, there's a collection of verses that we say. One of them is taken from Mishlei, book of Proverbs, which is really correctly translated as book of metaphors, but that's a separate discussion. So in Mishlei, Perek Yud Tes, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, you'll find the Pasuk, Rabbois machashavos b'leiv ish. Many are the thoughts in the mind of a person. Where do you do your thinking? You don't do your thinking in your heart, you do your thinking up here. Oh, the word leiv, first and foremost, means mind. Rabbi Victor Miller talks about this many times in his shiurim. In fact, he even translates the work chayvos halavavos as duties of the mind, because that's what it means. Hilchos Deus, he translates as laws of thinking, because that's what it is. In Sefer Charedim, who's one of the Moni HaMitzvahs, he counts of all the mitzvahs which are tali b'leiv, not over here, tali b'leiv, that depend on your mind, because he goes through the different parts of the body and counts how many mitzvahs relate to that part of the body. HaMitzvahs that are tali b'leiv are 51 out of Tariag, out of 613. It's a lot of mitzvahs. A lot of the mitzvahs of the Torah are telling me how to be in control of me. Who's the real me? My pinky? My hand? My muscles? My legs? Well, yeah, of course I want to be in control of those, but that's not the real me. Oh, the real me is my mind. That's what my personality, my character plays out. Oh, it's manifest through my bodily actions. It's manifest through my choice of words. It's manifest through my facial expressions, but all that is a reflection of my mind. Life is attitude. Life is thinking. And there are 51 mitzvahs. Mitzvah of Emunah, to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists. Leida sheyesh sham Elokim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists. Where do you do that? In your pinky, in your elbow, in your kneecap? No, that's in your mind. Oh, the mitzvah of Avas Hashem, where does that take place? It's in the mind. We're going to see soon. Where's After Recha Kamecha? Where do you love another person? In your pinky, your elbow, your kneecap? No, in your thoughts. L'tisna et achicha bilvavecha. Chapter 19, verse 18 of Vayikra, Parshas Kedoshim. Don't hate your brother in your thoughts. Because if I don't stop thinking negative about you, if I don't stop focusing on what I don't like about you, guess what's going to happen? It will filter down to the other leiv, my emotions, and I'll start hating you and feeling negative towards you. Oh, you start looking at all the mitzvahs that are tali b'leiv in the mind, and you start realizing, oh my gosh, they're all around. I see you do something which I think is wrong. In fact, I see you do something that I know is wrong, because the Torah says so. It's so clearly you said or did something really, really bad. Now, here's the problem. Who am I supposed to rely upon? My mind, what I saw with my eyes and my ears, and reported to my mind, and my mind interpreted that as wrong. You ate treif. You said lashon hara, whatever it is. Now, here's the interesting part. Comes along the Torah and tells me a pasuk in the same Parshas Kedoshim, Perek Yutes, b'tzedek tishbeit amitecha. And one of the meanings is, if you see someone do something wrong, and you have a rapport with this person, he's already got a chazaka of being a frum Jew. Now, here's the question. How are you supposed to interpret his behavior? Am I supposed to take it literally as my mind interprets it, as you did something wrong? You said something wrong, you ate something wrong. Or, b'tzedek tishbeit amitecha, judge your friend righteously, means if there's any possible interpretation that would put your husband, your wife, your child, your brother, your sister, your mother-in-law, your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, whoever it is, in a positive light, which interpretation should you select? Your mind's interpretation, or should you select anywhere in your imagination? If you can come up with some other positive interpretation that would put them into a positive light, which of the two should you select? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, select the one that puts them in a positive light. Even if that doesn't match your testimony of what you heard and saw with your own eyes, your own ears. We are being told in many places, take control of your mind. Leiv, first and foremost, means mind. It's referring to machshavas. There are many examples. In Mishlei, Perek Tes Zayin, Pasuk Tes, that's the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9. Leiv Adam yechashiv darkai. The mind of a person will think about his way. So you see, it's talking about the lashon of machshava. Look at Vayikra, Perek Hafhei, Pasuk Yud Zayin, and you'll see there what Rashi tells us basically is Hayodea machshavos hu yodea. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who knows the thoughts, he knows kol davar masul leiv, that whenever we talk about something that is referring to the mind, leiv, she'ein makeh ela mi shemahashavai belibai. It's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu who knows that, what's in the mind of each person's mind, the thoughts in his mind. So that's when you apply the words in the Torah, vayareta melokecha. Fear from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Be in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where do you do that? In your mind. It's in your thoughts. There are many more examples. In Bava Basra, Daf Kuf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, that's page 131a, at the very top of Rashi, he says, V'hu l'dava tali besvara de'ein loy elama shaliba yiroehu. In reference to a dayan, a judge, he only has in his mind what his mind sees. So interpretation takes place in the mind, and it's called leiv. Look at the book of Shmuel Aleph. That's the first book of Shmuel. Perek Tes Zayin, Pasuk Zayin. Ki Adam yera le'einayim. When Shmuel Hanavi was selecting David HaMelech, and Shmuel was misidentifying who was the next anointed one, the Mashiach, to be king over Klal Yisrael. Ki Adam yera le'einayim. A man looks at the world with his eyes. Hashem looks at the mind. So Hashem is saying, you're looking with your eyes when you see the oldest brother of David HaMelech, tall and handsome and so aristocratic. No, he's not the one. It's this one over here who is Edomi, completely red flaming skin and hair. He looks like Edom. That's what Rashi and the Mefarshim tell us. And Shmuel Hanavi was in fear that how could this be the one that's chosen by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because he looks like he's got red blood of a murderer. And of course, David HaMelech had that in his teva, but he used it to destroy the enemies of Klal Yisrael. So we're being warned, don't look with your eyes, look with your mind. And whose mind should you follow? Don't follow your thoughts. Well, if I can't rely on my thoughts, who am I supposed to rely on? Oh, rely on a HaKadosh Baruch Hu to teach you how to think, what to think, when to think. Oh, so I should instill and inject as much Torah learning as possible into my mind so that my mind follows your das, Hashem, not my das. Lo tasuru acharei levavchem. Don't follow your thoughts. The Medrash Agada, Parshas Miketz, Perek Mem Aleph, Pasuk Mem Aleph, V'zel Shainoi, this is what it says there. Halev shelo hiher be'avera. The mind which doesn't think thoughts of avera, of violation against Hashem. That's also the Girsa in Tanchuma, on the same Parshas Miketz. The Zohar in Parshas Toldos, page 246, Reish Mem Vav, tells us on the words Ish Tam Yoshev Ohalim, in reference to Yaakov Avinu. The Medrash Ne'elam in the Zohar tells us V'hala hu ha'choshev v'hu ha'yoshev oyalim. He's the one who's a thinker and he's sitting in tents. Chadahu, it's really one thing. Dichtiv, because it says V'yazid Yaakov nazid. Yaakov Avinu was preparing the lentil soup. So says the Zohar, what's the deeper meaning of that? Choshev machshavos noisav noisen b'Torah. He was constantly thinking thoughts. And yet the word the word used is v'halev hu ha'choshev. The mind is the thinker. That is what the mind really is. It's the brain. It's the control tower of our thoughts. So these are examples where we understand where now when we look at the words that Chazal give us, that the mitzvah of Tefillah in the Torah is in Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Yud Gimel, in Dvarim. And it's right bang in the start of the second paragraph of Kriyat Shema. V'hayayim shema tishmeu el mitzvosai, if you will listen to my mitzvahs, asher anochi mitzvah eschem hayayim, that I am instructing you today. Isn't that interesting? All the mitzvahs are being held together as, this is what I'm instructing you today. And what is that instruction? And it's not all the mitzvahs. All of a sudden, all the mitzvahs are encapsulated in one instruction. Le'ava es Hashem Elokeichem. To love your all-powerful God. Next word, same pasuk. Ula'ayv dai b'chol levavchem. And to serve him with all your thoughts. Uv'chol nafshechem. And with all your soul. Interesting. This is the pasuk that tells me to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chol levavchem. Asks the Gemara, the Torah Sheba'al Peh, what does the pasuk mean? You see, what the Gemara is doing, it's right at the beginning of Tanis Daf Beis, what the Gemara is doing is really echoing the conversation that you can imagine Moshe Rabbeinu having with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu dictates to Moshe Rabbeinu, write the following: I want you to love me. With all the mitzvahs, I want you to love me. Ula'avda b'chol levavchem, and serve me with your thoughts. Moshe Rabbeinu writes the words down and says to Hashem, Rebbeinu Shalom, how does a person love you b'chol, with do avoda with the lave? What is that avoda? So answers HaKadosh Baruch Hu, oh, zuhi tefillah. That's talking to me.